Requiem for a doomed climate. Extinction Rebellion, like almost all protesters here, say the Glasgow COP is a failure and a betrayal. The new draft agreement released at 8 a.m. keeps in phasing out coal power and fossil fuel subsidies, but the language is weaker still and may go altogether if India, China, South Africa and Saudi Arabia succeed.
This is not about shaming those countries. We all need to acknowledge that countries that need to move away from coal also needs help.
Inside the hall, a last chance to keep the Paris goal of 1.5 Celsius temperature rise within reach.
1.5 alive or dead?
It's alive, but it will all depend on our ambition, the way it is now formulated in our final conclusions.
The optimism of the rich, perhaps. Across the hall, the Bangladeshis aren't buying it.
Yeah, it is not ambitious enough. It is not, say, up to the level of keeping 1.5 degree temperature goal as enshrined in Paris Agreement to keep alive.
Today's vital final session of 197 countries to forge agreement delayed an hour, and then it broke up into last-minute huddles. COP President Alok Sharma working the room, US climate envoy John Kerry in there.
This session started an hour later than scheduled. Almost immediately they went into those huddles you've just seen. The COP president now says he wants to start again at 2:30, and he insists business will be concluded here today.
But still the David-Goliath struggle of this COP played out in the hall. Islands and poor nations worst hit by climate extremes caused by rich ones. Wealthy nations promised 12 years ago to pay $100 billion a year to help. They still haven't done it. Running way behind schedule mid-afternoon, Alok Sharma pleaded for agreement.
This is the moment of truth for our planet, and it's a moment of truth for our children and our grandchildren.
But the Saudis and Russians still have problems over publishing their full emissions. Papua New Guinea disputes deforestation moves, and India wants to delete that vital pledge to phase out coal power.
How can anyone expect that developing countries can make promises about phasing out coal and fossil fuel subsidies? Developing countries have still to deal with their development agendas and poverty eradication.
For God's sake, pleaded the EU climate chief, the world's moved on, COP must move with it. All 197 nations. It's unanimous or it's nothing.
So I please implore you, please embrace this text so that we can bring hope to the hearts of our children and grandchildren. They're waiting for us. They will not forgive us if we fail them today.
Not everyone gets to make choices about life and death. Not everyone gets to make choices that actually affect an entire planet. We here are privileged today to do exactly that.
Tuvalu seeks the floor. I give the floor to Tuvalu.
From a country which will be seabed if we don't keep 1.5 alive, Tuvalu's delegate, thinking of his grandchildren.
I keep looking at their photos every single night after returning from these halls, thinking, what would I tell them upon my return from Glasgow?
Outside, another die-in protest. An agreement here remains some hours off yet. But it's just one part of combating climate change, remember. What happens after COP matters more than what happens here. We have a route map, but a mountain to climb.
Well, let's get some of the detail now on what areas of dispute look like that they have been resolved and what's still up in the air. Our climate reporter, Simon Roach, joins me. And first, Simon, there's been loss and damage to loss and damage.
Yeah, well, as we just heard from Alex, there's been lots of drama, lots of delays today. There was these crucial draft texts published this morning, and then a meeting supposed to happen where countries could come and talk about it. That didn't happen immediately. Now, in the room just behind me, in the plenary, I was there as this shuffle diplomacy, as they talk about these meetings and side meetings went on. Insiders I spoke to said that at the time, a lot of the delay was dissatisfaction over what they call a deal around loss and damage. Now, loss and damage is a completely new type of money being offered by this COP. It's rich countries giving poor countries money for climate impacts already here today, not in the future, not next year, today. Now, the draft text yesterday, bear with me a moment, the draft text yesterday, poor countries were happy with. It suggested there could be a new pot of money coming. Then something shifted overnight, and the draft text today said, actually, let's not talk about a new pot yet, let's talk about it in the future. Of course, they were dismayed by that. They were not happy with that change, and there was a lot of moving around the room today. But now the second part of the story is when the meeting finally got underway, we're expecting a lot of uproar about that because it's what they've been talking about all day. But what actually happened is countries said, look, the poor countries especially, they said, we're not satisfied with this. Yet, we don't want to obstruct a deal going ahead, so for now we may just have to swallow it and expect more on that next year. It looks like that's going through for now.